Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast with Joe Pine, author of The Experience Economy and lots of other books you've probably already read, Dave Norton, an experienced futurist and founder of Stone Mantle, and me, Aranza Savas, an expert in coaching, motivation, and behavior change. Each week, we continue to bring you a trending story from the news and share our hot takes. Today, we're talking about a recent article from HBR. Sort of recent. It was from July 10th, 2025, but as this story will tell you, that's like 14 lifetimes ago. The title of this article is How Mart Won Young Customers in a Fragmented Attention Economy. All right, we haven't talked about the attention economy too much here on this podcast, but long and short, Mart has really made its value through paying attention to what its young customers want and being extremely agile and responsive in their production. The most famous product that they've created to date, I think, is probably the Labubu, which I just like saying, Labubu. And Labubus are on every young girl's purse right now. There is, for those of us who are, maybe a few decades older, think Cabbage Patch Kids a little bit, something that felt collectible, felt intriguing, a little bit weird and ugly, and yet captured hearts and minds. And so we're going to talk about today whether or not there are any lessons for experienced strategists in here. All right, Joe, kick us off. What do you think?
Well, first I got to respond to your use and the author's use of the term attention economy. There is no such thing as an attention economy because attention is not an economic function or an economic offering, right? We're in an experience economy where attention is one of the three currencies of the experience economy. As Jim Gilmore and I wrote in the subtitle to the 2020 re-release of the book, it's competing for customer time, attention, and money, right? Those are the three currencies of the experience economy. So it's not, so attention is very important in the experience economy, but, it's not an attention economy. Just had to point that out.
Yeah, agree. And I like the designation as currency. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to say on that point, Joe, or do you want me to jump in?
No, I think he's really curious to hear what you have to say on this, Dave.
Okay.
No.
So the article that we're taking a look at is by Yang Li, and he starts out by talking about the fact that we live in a world of an abundance of content. That's not new. We know that. Therefore, customers' attentions have become fragmented. That is not new. We have known that. And what makes Mart so interesting and so successful is that they've been able, through using kind of micro tools and different types of strategies to create attention with small groups, gain individual consumers, kind of personalize things, get this fragmented group of attention seekers to pay attention. I think that that's the main purpose of the article. And that's an interesting idea. One of the things that's interesting to me about it is that here is an acknowledgement that there are no more kind of demographic groupings to be paying attention to from a media buying standpoint. Okay. So sure, there's demographics, but when it comes to trying to get people's attention, companies have for a long time been very, very focused on who is my target audience, mass appeal. Joe, you've talked for years now about the fact decades that, that there are actually what you call markets within, and what I call situational markets. They're a little bit different ideas, but it's the same approach, right? And so what he seems to be saying here, but not really having the language to explain, is that what we're seeing is the dissolution of mass markets, even segment markets, even niche markets,
right,
to something that is much more situational in the moment. And that Pop Mart has done a great job of addressing that. So I like the story from that standpoint. I don't think that the author of the article has really pushed the envelope on why Pop Mart's been so successful. There's a lot of things that are going on from an experiential standpoint in what Pop Mart is doing that are key principles that experienced strategists should be paying attention to. This seems to be much more about leveraging real-time data-based customer insights, which is not a new concept.
No.
So actually, let me take you back, Dave, to the year 1987.
Okay.
when Stan Davis wrote the book Future Perfect, which I read when I was a strategic planner, not an experienced strategist, but normal strategist at IBM. And in there, he coined the term mass customization. He had a framework that you just went through almost exactly, right? He started with local markets, like before the Industrial Revolution, before the system of mass production, we had local markets where everything was made locally, it was bought and sold locally, it was used locally. But then with the advent of the system of mass production, we created for the first time these truly mass markets, that Henry Ford was the first to create. And that was a huge innovation, right? And that diffused through industry after industry, country after country, at least all the developed countries. But then it shifted into segments, as you said, as the next step, that you looked at segmentation. And I still think to this day, the demographics is one of the worst segmentations that you can use. The demographics tells you very little about an individual living, breathing person. Right. And we need to stop paying attention to demographics. And of course, and the next step is the niche markets, as you say, although I pronounce it niche, you pronounce it niche, potato. But
data.
And then what Stan Davis foresaw was that technology was bringing down the cost of customization. And this is from 1987, right, when we had fax machines, now to 2025, when we have 3D printers and all the databases and AI and all these ways of interacting with customers that we didn't have before. And he called it mass customized markets, or markets of one. And that's what caused me to get on to mass customization, which I got into our strategy and plans at IBM, which I wrote a book on, starting with my thesis at MIT, and then came out with the full book, which led to the experience economy, because customization turns goods into services and services into experiences. And then sometime after that, as you said, as I figured out that there is actually a next step. I mean, you look at this diagram and think that you can't do anything else other than get down to where every person is his own market. But there are multiple markets within that affect any one person based off situations, it also relates to modes, based off what mode they are in, based off of who they're with, based off of how they just feel at the moment, that you need to understand how you reach that individual market within the individual customer, right? Where there are many markets, scores and scores of different markets that we can find ourselves
Not
in.
like Pop Mart, many markets.
Yeah, no, it's different, right? And so it is, that's a basic principle that every experienced strategist needs to know and to embrace, particularly because experiences happen inside of us, right? It's our reaction to the events that are staged in front of us. So you need to reach inside of people and engage them, create that memory, right? That's basic definition of what an experience is. And one of the key ways to do that is to understand them as individuals, cater to them individually, whether that's through customizing the product, customize the activities you do for them with services, or in some way individualizing that experience down to them. And so Pop Mart is actually just at the very beginning of the multiple markets within. And the fact that they have all these different characters allows you to say, go into a store one time, say, oh, I love that one. But the next time you may go in and say, oh, I love that one. And there's enough there that you can do that. And then you can reach them through social media and so forth to catch them in these multiple markets within.
Yeah.
The other thing that didn't come through in the article as much as I would have liked, it is referenced briefly, is the fact that they are really consciously cultivating loyalty and a sense of belonging for their customers. Mm-hmm. And you feel like you're a member of the club because you have this exclusive item. And you're a member of the club because your Labubu pairs with this other Labubu. And so it's creating this false sense of relationship in many cases, but it is a sense of belonging. Again, we talked about parasocial relationships on a recent episode, and it's almost like we have a parasocial relationship with a brand in this case. And it happens to be a brand with which there is a really strong brand identity. So you could almost say the brand is person here, and they're creating a brand personal relationship with their customer that inspires that sense of loyalty. And actually, I think it's kind of an interesting thing to talk about now as we talk about point of view, right? So we're talking about point of view based on context and needs and experience, but there's also point of view from who you want to perceive your brand is as an identity.
I got to parse that again. Who you want to perceive your brand is, or as?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Like having that point of view on who the brand is and that personality.
Yeah. You know, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. There's a lot of things that Pop Mart is doing right, and that's why they are ridiculously successful in Japan and in China and the United States and Korea and everywhere.
Right, they have a global market here.
They really do. And they cross different cultures. But there are some traditional things that they're also doing as well. For example, Pop Mart has these blind box toys. You don't know what toy you're going to get. It's a surprise figurine. You know, that takes me back to Jack in the Box, caramel corn and stuff like that. That is an old fashioned.
What was it called?
What was it?
Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jack. Yeah, Jack in the Box was a restaurant in Texas with excellent tacos.
Yeah.
I love that. You love Jack in the Box tacos? They're my guilty secret. Whenever I go someplace south or west, the first thing I do is go to a Jack in the Box.
Why are they so good?
Get a couple tacos. Oh man,
that's what I want to talk about.
Yes,
we need to do
another podcast. We'll just do a Jack in the Box taco.
Yeah. So
this episode brought to you by Jack in the Box.
So you don't the fact that they make it a special surprise, and there's kind of this feeling that's just classic anticipation rising to a climactic moment. They don't mass produce their toys. They have artists who actually create these different toys, creating scarcity
and authenticity, right? Handcrafted, made by people rather than made by machines is definitely an authenticity play. Mm-hmm.
So they're doing some really fascinating things. There's the community aspect that you talked about, Aransas, that make this a very modern version of things that we have seen in the past that have worked really, really well as well. Historically, there's been things like Build-A-Bear, which way back when, Joe, you were talking about.
And they're kicking it today still 30 years later.
It's an excellent experience.
It's an excellent
Cabbage Patch Dolls that are Aransas and Beanie Babies was another similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
Pound puppies.
Right.
So these are timeless.
The article also mentions Lego briefly. And Lego is actually of the same ilk because you're basically making your own toy. Right, you've got all the bricks. You may whether you're doing it from just the bricks or whether you're doing it from a design that comes in a package, right? Mm-hmm. You are the one that's putting it, and that's even more authentic, right? The IKEA effect, but it's even more so because I put it together myself, just like at Build-A-Bear, I put the heart in to have that that level of
how have we not done an episode on Lego?
Yeah,
I can talk about Lego for hours.
Same. Such a smart company.
Yeah. I think that what we're seeing is kind of this merger between timeless principles of experience design and toy making and so forth, combined with being Instagrammable, being very much connected to the vibe and culture of a lot of different people's activities, and being very, very much about kind of it pops up and then it disappears, which is kind of the way people live their lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's actually called Pop Mart.
I think so. I think that's kind of a key part of what they're doing. So kudos to Pop Mart for doing a lot of great things I think it goes way beyond this idea of just getting people's attention, even though that's basically where the article kind of puts things. It's a short article, so maybe they couldn't cover everything that they needed to cover.
I know from experience, HPR articles often get cut way down from what you wanted
Yeah,
to put in there.
right. Yeah, I think we both know that.
You might have some opinions on that. You know, as you were talking to, I was thinking about you probably have not received targeted ads for this, but go ahead, sit next to your phone, and now you can have them too. As I say this, this company called Fern with 2 Fs. Really interesting brands. They create limited edition small batch perfumes for each season, and they have a subscription based model. And like to receive it, you have to become a member of the Perfume Society. And then you receive a seasonal scent box. And within the scent box are all of these different transporting tools that immerse you in the concept of the scent. So they've taken something as simple as a perfume and created a full-fledged experience around it. And I think that's where so much of these brands are going now that we've moved in home. So much more. It's a side effect of the pandemic. I know we're leaving our homes more again, finally. And yet there's a lot of people who just aren't ever going to come back out, I don't think, and are going to continue to source at home anything they can, including experiences. And so it is really interesting to watch these direct to consumer brands who are figuring out how to create a more immersive and saturated experience at the individual level.
Yeah. No, I think it's. Go ahead, Joe.
So I'll mention too that the first time I ever heard of Pop Mart was actually this summer. I teach a summer course in a master's degree at Northeastern University, and one of the students from China, Haimin Huang, actually did a paper on Pop Mart. Right, and that's the first time I heard of it, and it was on one of my other models from our book Infinite Possibility about creating fusing the real and the virtual. And he basically said, here's all the things that Pop Mart should do to be able to do that. Including using augmented reality with portals in the stores and animated scenes on the shelves. And Lego's done some things like that. Virtual pop-up characters to create that relationship and extend it into the virtual world, into social media and so forth.
What if I could then put it into my Roblox game or
right?
Whatever?
Exactly. And they talk about alternate reality as a concept I have, where we talk about global scavenger hunts and multi-location storylines. So you got to go to different stores in order to get the full story, and team-based fan competitions. And the last one I'll mention is what I call physical virtuality, which is like 3D printing, where they could personalize accessories for these things, and like Build-A-Bear does. So you don't just buy the bear, you buy the outfits that go with them and so forth. And you can do that and have them, printed and shipped remotely. So there's a lot of things that they could do even more than they are today if they really embrace this idea of fusing the real and the virtual.
By the way, you should know that my daughter sent me a text last night that said, here's an excellent idea for my birthday gift. And I opened it, and it was a link to merch for a musical that has only been produced on TikTok called Epic, which has a huge fandom built around it. And they were selling me DVDs.
That's amazing.
If I wanted a sweatshirt, I had to buy a DVD plus sweatshirt bundle. I was like, WTF DVDs, yo. Like, now, can't I just buy her a sweatshirt? No, I have to spend $85 and buy a DVD plus a sweatshirt. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was like, they just produced too many DVDs and they're trying to get rid of this stuff. And she was like, because it's special and it's a musical, Mom.
She actually liked this. Oh,
she's thrilled.
Wanted the DVD. Wow.
Yeah, for her, it's nostalgia.
My other daughter asked for a DVD.
Why wouldn't they give her a code and stream it rather than sending a physical DVD?
I mean, my husband's an awards voter because he's part of the Directors Guild. And we still get so many DVDs. I can't even tell you. I was like, where are we supposed to play these?
Right.
Can you imagine for a second how different Cracker Barrel's world would be
cannot
right
avoid
now.
Cracker Barrel for one episode. It just,
No,
come
no.
on.
This is actually now called
we have
Cracker
got to
Barrel's
talk about,
Experience Strategy
we've got
Podcast.
to talk about the Cracker Barrel, just because we were right and we
Yes, we
beat
were.
everybody else
Right.
to the punch.
You
Yes,
should
we
link
were.
Cracker
listening to the
Barrel's
podcast.
episode in the show notes here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You need to go back and listen
I think
to
Cracker
this.
Barrel
but
should hire us, is what I think.
Imagine if Cracker Barrel had gone down the experience route
Uh-huh.
instead of going down the branding route.
Right.
They would be in a completely different world. They could learn some lessons from Pop Mart, which is a great brand. There's nothing wrong with their branding per se, but it's the surprises. They had all of the elements that they could have done so much more with, and they chose instead to kind of take the generic brand strategy kind of approach.
Right.
And it's
I just want to
killing
say
them.
too, that message, that was for every one of you out there whose company is about to do a brand renovation.
Yep.
As the experienced strategist, please be the voice of dissent
Yeah, think
and
through
help
Focus
them
on the
understand
experience.
that it's about the experience.
Exactly.
And I know that can be hard to take to leadership, especially leadership that has solved problems with brand in the past and believes in the power of brand. If you don't have the evidence at hand to convince them, reach out to us and we will help send you the data and the evidence to convince them.
Good point. I love it.
Beautiful point. We should end with that. The experience is the brand.
Yeah.
Snap, snap, snap.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up my microphone and drop it. I'm just kidding.
That would be really loud and painful for the ears.
That's
And that would be a poor experience, Joe Pine. So in defense of the listener, I vote no. This episode is brought to you by Cargo, a strategic marketing firm that we at Stone Mantle have partnered with for years. Cargo knows how to build meaningful brand experiences because they ask every prospect or client the same question. What if every customer brought you your next one? Let's face it, customers advocating for your brand, not you, is the only currency that matters now. It's the kind you earn by investing in moments that move people, experiences that hit deeper, stick longer, and spark something real. Because when something feels personal, when it truly resonates, people share it. And when they do, you don't just earn attention, you earn trust, traction, and impact that money alone could never buy. Cargo focuses on just that, inspiring advocacy, creating unforgettable brand moments that spark real connection, meaningful conversation, and loyalty that builds movements, not just market share. For a limited time and only for Experience Strategy Podcast listeners, they're offering their proprietary advocacy readiness workshop for free to a few companies who are serious about getting every customer to bring you the next. Follow the link in the show notes to sign up and tell them that Dave, Aranzis, and Joe sent you.